Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Almighty Allah, we ask you to send your blessings and peace upon Prophet Muhammad and upon his purified progeny. So we are at verse number 3 of the chapter 22, Surah al-Hajj. We've studied the two verses yesterday. They give us a brief summary of the end of time, which the Quran calls as-sa'a. And today I start with verse number 3. And then Muhammad Rada will read the translation, inshallah, and then we'll study it. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ومن الناس من يجادل في الله بغير علم ويتبع كل شيطان مريد. Are you there, Muhammad Rada? All right, I guess I'll read the translation. No. Assalamu alaikum, please read it. Okay.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And yet among people there are such who dispute concerning God without knowledge and follow every rebellious devil.
So this verse talk about those who deny God or dispute God. The Quran divides those who dispute concerning God into two groups. One group is the leaders, those who initiate the thoughts, the argument, and the followers, those who follow what others say and repeat them without a lot of knowledge. So this verse is actually talking about the followers of those who dispute God. And later in this chapter, in verse 8, the verse will talk about the leaders. We will go to that, inshallah, at later nights, later evenings. A lot of people deny God, or they raise a lot of doubts or arguments about God, whether God exists or not. If God exists, why he allow evil to happen to people, why there is suffering. Then if God exists, he must be violent or careless. So a lot of arguments they raise. The Quran says without knowledge, they just follow what others say, and those basically will be misguided by Satan or any evil person. They might follow either كل شيطان مريد, any rebellious person that or an evil person or a devil. It seems this story came after a man whose name is al-Nadr ibn al-Harith. He has a very long story. Al-Nadr ibn al-Harith was a very famous leaders of the pagans in Mecca, and he was also a very strong fighter against Islam, who showed a lot of animosity against Muslims and against the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself. Another used to say he was a merchant. He would travel through different parts, would go to the Roman Empire, to Syria, and even to Persia. And once he's there, he would talk to them and say, tell me about your legends, about your ancient stories. Because there is a man in our region, in our city, his job is just to tell us about legends in the past and the stories of the past. So I would like to learn from you and go and tell my people about your legends. So his job is to first deny Qur'an, deny the revelation, and says this is all asatir. These are all legends and fictions. And he would say also, angel, for example, angels are the daughters of God. He would deny the resurrection, al-ma'ad, the hereafter. And when the Prophet would sit in the Grand Mosque and recite the Quran, after the Prophet leaves, he would come and sit in the same place and recite the legends that he learned from the Romans or the Persians. His name again is An-Nadhr ibn al-Harith, a fearful enemy of Muslims and the faith of Islam. And this is the man, it was this man who wrote the declaration of sanction against the tribe of the Prophet, peace be upon him. We know the tribe of the Prophet, Bani Hashim, were in sanction for 3 years in Mecca because they belonged to the Prophet, they supported the Prophet, peace be upon him. So the pagans in Mecca decided to sanction them or put them in a kind of a camp, and they declared that it is forbidden for anyone to involve in a transaction with them, sell them anything, give them any food, or keep their relationship, initiate a relationship or continue keeping relationship with them for 3 years. The purpose of this sanction is to either starve them to death or they would give up their faith and for the Prophet to give up his ministry. At the end of this 3 years, the Prophet lost his beloved wife and also his beloved uncle, Abu Talib, who supported him for many years. So that's another Ibn al-Harith who used to fight, and the Quran describes this kind of people that they debate and raise doubts about God without knowledge, just repeating what others say. All right, any comment or a question so far before we move to the next verse number 4? All right, verse number 4. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. كتب عليه أنه من تولاه فإنه يضله ويهديه إلى عذاب السعير. Translation, please.
It has been decreed for such devils that whoever turns to him for guidance will be misguided and directed to the penalty of the fire.
So obviously it has been decreed by God, everyone who follows the guidance or the misguidance of the devil will not be saved. Satan does not save his own followers. He in fact deceives them so they get misguided, and of course if they disobey God and they obey the devil, they will be misguided and unsaved. Yes, very clear. And now verse number 5. This verse is a little bit long and it needs actually maybe a couple of sessions or maybe more to talk about. This is one of the very inspiring verses of the Quran. In fact, when I say one of the inspiring verses of the Quran, I believe all the verses of the Quran are inspiring. There is no difference between one another, but for different cause and for different reason comes the inspiration of different verses. So the verse number 5 says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. يا أيها الناس إن كنتم في ريب من البعث فإنا خلقناكم من تراب ثم من نطفة ثم من علقة ثم من مضغة مخلقة وغير مخلقة لنبين لكم ونقر أرحام ما نشاء إلى أجل مسمى ثم نخرجكم طفلا ثم لتبلغوا أشدكم ومنكم من يتوفى ومنكم من يرد إلى أرض العمر لكي لا يعلم بعد علم شيئا وترى الأرض هامدة فإذا أنزلنا عليها الماء اهتزت وربت وأنبتت من كل زوج بهيج.
O people, if you are in doubt about the resurrection, remember that we have created you from dust, then a sperm, then from a clot, then from a lump of flesh, partly formed and partly unformed, so that we may manifest you to your origins. And we caused you to remain and shape in the womb who we wish for an appointed time. And afterward we bring you forth as infants, then that you may reach your full strength. And among you there is such who die, and among you there is such who are sent back to an abject time of life, so that after knowing he or she knows no more. And you see the land dry and barren, but we send down water upon it. It begins to stir and swell, and it puts forth every kind of beautiful growth in pairs.
So you see, this is a very detailed verse, that that will take most of our time this session and maybe in the next session as well. To remind you that these few verses of the beginning of this chapter, they are all Meccan style. I've talked about this before. It starts with calling on mankind, on people. Ya ayyuhan nas does not call on believers or non-believers. The call is general for all mankind. This is a Meccan style, and verses in Mecca would come with Ya ayyuhan nas, while in Medina it comes either Ya ayyuhal ladina aman, or the believers, or Ya ahl al-kitab, or people of faith, which means people of other faith tradition, mainly Jews and Christians. So this verse starts with a general call. Oh people, if you are in doubt of resurrection, of course, it's needless to say that believers believe in the resurrection. Muslims believe in God, the prophets, the Qur'an, and resurrection. So it might not make sense to say, oh, believers, if you are in doubt. Though there might be some who at certain stages they become doubtless. This is the nature of a human being, that sometimes they become they become doubtless, or they raise certain doubts. So it starts with a general calling on everyone, and including in those could be some believers. If you are in doubts, let us give you two examples from your own life, a live example, how an evidence, in fact, that how shin and ma'ad, as it's said in Arabic, is true. It is possible to happen. So in this verse, the Quran gives us two evidences. One is summarize of the human life, the cycle of a human life. And the next one is evidence from life and nature. The Quran has summarized this. The first case, the example of a human life, it says, if you're out of prison, consider this example that with you. We have created you from dust and soil. This is the first stage. God says, we have created you from dust and soil. So we humans did not come from other planets. We were created from this planet Earth, for the substance that makes a planet Earth, dirt and soil. Whether a believer or an atheist, I think today the general understanding among almost all the humans is that we are created from this earth. We are created. Believers believe that this creation might be made by God. Non-believers might believe other way. So God says we created from this earth. We did not come from another planet. So I guess everyone should agree on this part. Now, somehow we were developed, we believe, with the miracle of God, miracle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We were developed from dust and soil to being a man and a woman, human being, a man and a woman. And now the next stage of reproduction starts, which the Quran refers to. So before I move to that, our origin from dust and soil. The Quran says in other parts of the Quran, in other chapters, Minha khalaq, we created you from earth. وَفِيهَا نُعِيدُكُمْ, we will cause you to return to earth. So we are buried in earth, not only, but later our body will turn to dust, and later in many years, tens or hundreds of years later, our body will turn into the same substance of earth, whether buried or cremated, it doesn't matter. It will go back to earth. However, in our faith, burial is the tradition. Now, the Quran says, back to the other verse of the Quran, we created you from earth. To earth you will return. وَمِنْهَا نُخْرِجُكُمْ تَارَةً أُخْرَى, and from the earth, the same earth, we will resurrect you one more time. So you see, this is the journey of eternal life as the Quran describes it. We were created from earth. After our lens, we go back to earth, and then we get resurrected from the same earth. From the same earth, we get resurrected from dust and soil. The human body will emerge, God will give life, and there will be the day of judgment. So this is part one. We are created from this earth, from dust and soil. Now the second stage of once a man or a woman were developed, and in our case, the case of the believers, it's Adam and Eve who started the modern race of modern human, the new race of modern human. It starts the stage of reproduction, says ثُمَّ لِنُطْفَةٍ. Then how we are born right now is from a drop of a sperm. And again, before I move to this part, today, even this stage, we live on earth. Our food comes from earth, our water comes from earth. So our dwelling on earth, our oxygen comes from earth, the air, the food, all comes from earth. Not only we were created from the substance of earth, we also depend on earth to sustain our life. And now it goes after that, we created from a drop of a sperm. The next stage would be ثُمَّ مِنْ عَلَقَةٍ, a clot. So when a sperm and egg unites, when a sperm fertilizes an egg, it forms a clot, and this clot will be developed in a fetus in the womb. And the next stage it says, ثُمَّ مِن مُضْغَةٍ ثُمَّ مِن مُضْغَةٍ. And now is a kind of a lump. Our lumps become developed and they grow in the womb. This lump that is created, developed from the clot, the Quran says, مُخَلَّقَةً غَيْرَ مُخَلَّقَةً, partly formed and partly unformed. What does this mean? So we humans, subhanAllah, all this information, our parents were to read, or grandparents were to read, let's say 100 years ago, they didn't have this information that is available for us today. We understand it better because science has introduced more information and, and knowledge about the formation of the humans in the womb of their mothers. But the Quran has mentioned this 14 centuries ago, when there was no research centers or labs or CT scans or x-rays to see what's going on inside the womb. Anyway, it says, in the womb, we make you partly formed and partly unformed. What does this mean? Our creation, brothers and sisters, we share a lot of genes from our parents. We share them a lot. You might share the same color of your skin, the same color of the hair or eye, the shape from your parents. Sometimes good things, such as intelligence, many times good things, and sometimes even illnesses, sicknesses also, many of them are inherited. So these are wired. However, every human in this universe, I don't know how many billions were born and died, every one of us, trillions of humans, have a unique identity in variety of aspects. One is our DNA. I believe no two humans share one DNA. The full DNA is unique for all humans. We share part of our DNA with parents and even with animals, maybe, they say. But the full DNA is for a unique DNA every person. Also our fingerprints, our eye prints, and variety of other things. I am not a physician or biologist that can talk a lot about this, but this is what is available for the public, that we share a lot of genes with our parents, maybe with our siblings and children, but then we have a unique characters and unique identity as well. So this is what the Quran referred to. Mukhallaqa, partly because of genes and your parents, what you inherit, and some is given to you alone, unique. And then it says, لِنُبَيِّنَ لَكُمْ. This is to make a manifest for you about your origins, where you came from, how you were developed from soil, and then to sperm, and then to clot, and then lumps, and then it says, وَنُقِرَّ فِي الْأَرْحَامِ مَا نَشَاءُ. We decree what is going to happen in the wombs, male, female, or other, could be short, tall, whatever. We have to whatever we gain in the wombs of our mother, this is by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is God who decree for our shape and formation in the womb of our mothers. And then he says, إِلَى أَجَلٍ مُسَمَّى. You stay, this formation lasts in the womb for a specific term. So we know typically humans are in the womb of their mothers for 9 months. But amazingly, every individual, every baby stays for a specific time that could be different from others. Maybe even by seconds, or some by hours, some by days or even weeks. Some even are born at, I don't know, 7 months, and then they get to go to the hospital and be incubated. So everyone has a certain term for their time in the womb. Then the Quran says, ثُمَّ نُخْرِجُكُمْ طِفْلًا. And some, I should refer here, some do not make it. Many babies are lost before they get born, during miscarriage or abortion. Then the Quran says, ثُمَّ نُخْرِجُكُمْ طِفْلًا. So and later you are brought forth as a baby, infant. Then you go through the journey of your life in this world, out of the womb of your mothers, until you reach the peak of your strength. The peak of your strength could be something between 18 to, let's say, 40 years, the peak of your strength. Here, at the peak of your strength, starts the journey of departure. Some would depart immediately. وَمِنْكُمْ مَنْ يُتَوَفَّى. Among you, those who depart very soon. And among you, those who will stay longer. And some, in fact, they will stay longer and become very old to the point that they reach the weakest point of life. The weakest point of life. They lose their faculties. They are no more able to see or hear or walk or maintain themselves, take care of themselves. They need somebody to assist them with living. And the Quran referred to another powerful point here. He says, وَمِنْكُمْ مَنْ يُرَدُّ إِلَىٰ أَرْذَلِ الْعُمَرِ لِكَيْ لَا يَعْلَمَ بَعْدَ عِلْمٍ شَيْئًا. Some will go to the point that they will forget everything. They will not know anything else. They will lose their memory. They will lose names. They even will lose, forget about relationships. They might not know that this man or this woman is their own daughter or son. They might forget about their spouses, so on and so forth. They might leave home, they cannot come back if they can leave home. So God is referring to this. Of course, there is a wisdom for that. We will talk maybe about this later if we have time. We're already are at 6:31, but I need to finish because we promised to finish within 30 hours. So this is an evidence of the cycle of a human life. God has created us from soil, then a man and a woman grow, then the reproduction of a human and babies start in the process that already are mentioned, and then we depart. The Quran wants to say, if God wants to create this, and He created this in the beginning, creating it one more time is not difficult. You see, creating this phone is difficult the first time. Once it is created, to remanufacture it, to remake it, is easy. Today, scientists are struggling to create a vaccine for this COVID-19. But once they discover it, they create it, to reproduce it is very easy. This is exactly what the Quran says. This is your life, the journey of your life. We already created you before, we can recreate you again. And then the last sentence of the Quran says, now in the nature, life in the nature, وَتَرَى الْأَرْضَ حَامِدَةً. You see earth or a piece of land dry and barren, nothing except dirt and soil, not even a single tree or a vegetation, dry. And then what happens? فَإِذَا أَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْهَا الْمَاءَ. When rain falls, water falls on this land, اهتزت وربت, starts to grow, starts to produce. اهتزت وربت, starts to grow and produce. Give it 2-3 weeks. You know, when springs happen like these days, and you go outside the city, you see these plains full of beautiful roses and flowers. Beautiful. This is what Quran is referring to. A dry land, water comes, and it turns to be a land full of life, full of wild, beautiful flowers from all kinds. And if you put a seed, it becomes a tree with vegetable or with a fruit. So what happened? The land was dead. Water comes, it became full of life. The same would happen with the resurrection. I would like to end here. We'll continue, inshallah, the next day, inshallah, tomorrow at 6. But if you have any question that you would like to ask or a comment that you would like to raise, this is the time to do it.
I don't see anybody raising their hands.
All right, so let me conclude here with reciting dua. Before I conclude, I would like to wish you blessed Ramadan. Today is the first day of Ramadan. We sent at the center, we sent the newsletter a little bit late because I spent about 3 hours making sure and talking to people whether the crescent moon was sighted or not. And then after about 3 hours, I came to, I was convinced that the moon was sighted in Southern California. So for some, they will start tomorrow, but we already at our center, inshallah, today is the first of Ramadan. So may this Ramadan be a blessed Ramadan for all of you, a time for spiritual enrichment, and inshallah also enrichment in wisdom, in faith, in patience. I would like to say that during Ramadan, we test positive for patience, brothers and sisters. Hopefully, you test negative for COVID-19, but all of us, we test positive for patience and great manners, great akhlaq. We need to maintain our calmness, our akhlaq, and also our compassion to think about others and help others, inshallah. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect you, during this month and all the time, and protect everyone, protect the world from this pandemic. And hopefully within this month, inshallah, by the time of Eid or even before, we get the gift that this pandemic has ended or will end, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'll see you all tomorrow at 6 p.m. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Good to see you.